Hi everyone, my name's Rebecca and welcome back to My Bookish Travels. Today I'm going to show you how I'm going to conquer my TBR in 2024. So hopefully this is the year that my TBR actually starts to decrease and stops increasing so much. And the way I'm going to do it, although not as aesthetically pleasing as the wrapping your TBR and opening it every time you finish a book, I'm going to do something that works for me, and that is make it more manageable for the size of my TBR. So I'm going to just kind of throw myself under the bus here and be honest and tell you that out of all of the books I added to my shelf in 2014 when I first joined Goodreads, and I know there's a lot of controversy with Goodreads right now, but just stick with me. The year that I joined was in 2014, and when I joined, I added all of the books that were on my shelf that I still hadn't read. So there were some that had been on my shelf for many years prior to that, and there were a lot that had joined my shelf in 2014. So I did a calculation, and I have 426 books that I added in 2014 that are still showing as unread on my shelf. So I want to work through those rather than focusing on adding new books to my collection, which also means that I'm going to stop looking at releases and new editions of books and re-releases of the same books I already own but in prettier editions. I'm going to stop looking at those, and I'm just going to focus on reading what I own. So how I'm going to make it more manageable is with this beautiful crate here. I'm going to read my TBR, but I'm going to make it more manageable by only working through the books in a logical way where if they're in this crate, I can read them. I'm going to just trick my mind into thinking that the only books in this TBR crate are the only books I own that I need to read. And the books that I have sitting in front of me that I'm going to show you are actually all that fit in this crate without it looking like overwhelmingly piled higher than this crate. It just comfortably fits this crate. And it is a fair size, guys. It's not a tiny one. But this crate with the books I have in front of me fit 40 books, 40. So until I either finish January and decide I've got enough space, I'd like to add a couple more into it, I can. Or if I'd rather just read it until the box is empty and then refill the crate, I'll figure it out as I go. But for now, this is going to be my TBR crate, and I'm only going to read what is in this crate and focus on finishing those. So if you guys would like to see the books that I have, I am going to do a little bit of explaining because there's some on here that maybe are rereads. There's some that have been on here much longer than 10 years. There will be some that have, to my way of looking at it, been on my shelf for 10 years and they just haven't been read. And I want to stop that. I want to stop that. Now, because we are 14 days into the new year, I have done a couple of the books out of this crate so far, and I will show you guys kind of how I'm kind of choosing my books when I come to them. So the first book on my shelf is Stormbreaker by Anthony Horowitz. This is actually a re-released anniversary edition that includes a bonus short story in the Alex Rider series. I rebought this back in 2014 because I really love this series, but I wanted the short story. So I bought this and I haven't reread it. So I think, why not reread it? I don't like having multiple editions on my shelf if I don't read them all. It's just a weird thing for me. So I do need to read this. The next ones I'm going to show you are all from my childhood. So they have been on this shelf for more than 10 years, but I've only ever perused through them. I've never actually finished them. So the first two I have is Star Wars Incredible Cross Sections and Star Wars Revenge of the Sith Incredible Cross Sections. My siblings and I got given this one when we were younger and they didn't really want it anymore. So when I was older and I got this one, because I think I was a bigger Star Wars nerd than my siblings were, I got this and I just have never actually sat down and read all of the details in it, and I'm a little bit nerdy and I want to read them. The next two, again, this was given to my siblings and I. This is Star Wars, the Visual Dictionary. And then one year for my birthday, I got Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith Visual Dictionary. And I, again, have only perused through these. I have not actually read them. I also have Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean, the visual guide. Looked through it. Haven't actually read all of the details, so I'm excited to actually take some time and read it. So the fun fact here with my TBR for 2014, all of the books that were added in 2014 to my shelf were physical books. So although I do plan to read some of my unread Audible and some of my unread Kindle books, they're not as high on the priority list because I'm not necessarily looking at finishing those ones as fast. I want to finish mainly the ones showing as being on my TBR shelf for 10 years because that's way too long to be sitting unread. These next three I'm going to show you, again, they were from my childhood. They actually were at my papa's house. When he passed, I asked the family if I could have these ones because I remember whenever he would watch me at times, I would ask him to read me little parts out of each of these books, and I just have a lot of fond memories and connection. Never read them cover to cover, but I just have a lot of memories and I want to sit down and read them straight through. So I have this one called Tales Told in Holland, Nursery Friends from France, and Little Pictures of Japan. These next two, my dad actually got for me when I was very small. I feel like these were the first two official books I got given as a child. The first one is the Children's Illustrated Bible. I remember my dad and I, almost every single night, we would read a section of this. And he would read the section when I was too small to actually read. And then when I got a little bit older, I would read it to him and we would go back and forth each night. And we never actually finished this one, but I remember him getting Children of God, which is somewhat connected to the same series of these, because I believe it's through the same publishing house, if I remember correctly. This one is just the book of Acts, whereas this is the full New and Old Testament, but it's written for children. And I like this one because it also came with like a lot of like interesting facts. I know that you're hearing like the spine cracking. This is very old. This book is over 25 years old, so like I've had it for a long time. The next one I have is Star Wars Revenge of the Sith scrapbook, and this is actually the current read that I'm working through at the moment. So the way that my reading out of this crate kind of falls is I have a spin the wheel app on my phone where you can put in specific things that should go on the wheel of choice, and then you spin it and it chooses a random option on there. So I took all 40 of these books, and as I've finished a book, I choose the next one. Or if I think I'm going to finish it in the same day, for example, I think I'm going to finish this one today. It's a really fast read. It's a children's book. I've spun the wheel and chosen what my next one is based on what it selected there. So stick around because you're going to see the first one that I spun on the wheel, because this was the second one I believe I chose off of the wheel. Now we move into some of the creative things that I have been given in my childhood or when I got slightly older, because I thought I was a creative child and other people thought I was a creative child. But did I do any of these creative things? No, I did not. So now where I'm at, I want to kind of take some time to look at these creative books I was given and see what I can create from them and learn some new things. So the first one is Decorative Beads. I got given this from my mom. It's calligraphic styles. This is a very old book, but I do want to learn how to do calligraphy. Bead Girl, crochet hats, and knit mittens. I got these when I was very, very little and quickly learned that I could not crochet or knit without being shown. And this was before Google and before YouTube, so didn't really have an option to learn because my mom is a left-handed knitter and crocheter, and I'm right-handed, so I didn't learn. But now I have a lot more resources I can use, so I want to learn. Next, I have the Holographic Night Sky. This is the complete stargazing package with the book and kit. I do love my stars. I definitely want to do some stargazing this summer, and I figure why not take a look at this children's one, because sometimes kids' versions of stuff way better than the adult. This one's actually still on my currently reading shelf because I did start working through some of the recipes, and it is M&M's Fun Stuff Cookbook. And the last creative book that is in this stack of 40 is this one for cross stitch. So I did do cross stitch as a child, but I did it where it was printed onto the actual material, so it was kind of a cheap version of it. This is where you're kind of actually having to count the cross stitch while you're doing it and make sure that you're not fumbling along. So I'm really intrigued to try this as an adult because the only time I did it as a child, it all had it stamped on. And I love getting to see the final production, but the in progress stage had that cheap version, and I think I need to try it without. All right, and now the last 20 books I'm going to show you, I definitely bought in 2014, and they've been sitting on my shelf for 10 years unread. They've been waiting long enough, so here they are. I have Sunny Diary 2, Dawn Diary 2, and Ducky Diary 2. These are books 6, 7, and 10 in the California Diaries. This is a spin-off from the Babysitter Club books, and it gives like a very like spooky vibe, you can tell from the cover. I didn't realize when I picked them up that they were connected, and then I just haven't read them. Once I found out they were connected, I was like, oh, what? Okay, I need to read these, and then never did. And that is literally the story of this entire part of this existence. I really was excited when I got it, and then I just never processed through the stage from being excited and getting it to being excited and reading it. Next one is Flowers in the Attic by V.C. Andrews. I was recommended by a friend to read this. This was her favorite book. And then I read a little bit more about what it's about, and I'm a little bit unsure and a little creeped out. I feel like anybody who has siblings is like very creeped out by that idea because like siblings, I can't wrap my head around it, but I'm going to give it a try. It's been on my shelf for 10 years. If I don't read it now, when am I ever going to read it? Next, I have Shrinking Violet by Danielle Joseph. This is what the Disney original Radio Rebel is based off of, and I actually remember when I saw it when it first came out, I really liked it, so I was very intrigued to read the story it was based off of. Next, I have Kiss of Fire by Deborah Cook. This was actually the first dragon shifter novel I ever purchased, and I just never read it. And when I finish reading this one, this is going to be the next book that my Spin the Wheel told me to read. So I'm very, very excited to read this one. Next, I have Death, Taxes, and a French Manicure by Diane Kelly. This is about an IRS agent, and the title just sounds hilarious. It was giving me Stephanie Plum vibes, and I could not pass it up. This next one was actually the first Spin the Wheel choice for the year, and it was Love on the Lifts by Rachel Hawthorne. Not going to say anything about this because I'm going to discuss it in another video, but definitely a good start and totally made sense why I need to stop procrastinating and read these older books I was really excited about as soon as possible. So again, another thing I'm going to do is call myself out for being a bad friend. I was gifted The Innocent Mage by Karen Miller by a booktube friend of mine, and I still haven't read it. And they gifted this to me in 2014. I'm a horrible, horrible book friend. I need to read this. And I think the reason why I got scared is because it's super small print and it's super thin pages. And this may not look like it, but this is like over 600 pages. So I think I just got really scared about the size of the book, and I need to stop doing that. It just means that there's a lot more world building happening. Nothing to be scared of. The next one I have is Mabel Riley, A Reliable Record of Humdrum, Peril, and Romance by Martha Jocelyn. I mainly picked this up because TD is a financial institution, and I was intrigued that they had a book that they had put out for part of the TD Canadian Children's Literature Award winner. I didn't know that was a thing. I came across this in 2014 and I was like, I should read this. It must be good. And as you can tell, I have not read it. The next one I have is Video Kill by Joanne Fluke. I am a big scaredy cat, but when I initially heard the synopsis of this, I was like, I need to read this. So the story follows like an ex-actress, and if I'm remembering correctly, she gets pulled in to work with the police because there's somebody who is filming and murdering women in very similar style to Alfred Hitchcock films, if I'm remembering correctly. And it just sounded so spooky, so eerie, so unique. I was like, I need to read this. And then I got it and I was just like, I'm going to read it when I'm no longer a scaredy cat. And we are 10 years later. I'm still a scaredy cat, but we're going to read it. The next one is Ill Wind by Rachel Kane. This is book 1 in the Weather Warden series. All I remember about this for why I wanted to read it was because it's characters that are able to control the weather. And I was just fully like, I am sold on that. I need to read this. The next one, again, I Am a Horrible Friend. That same friend that bought me the book I mentioned earlier also got me His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novak. And this was actually a birthday gift, if I'm remembering correctly. And guys, that was 10 years ago and I still have not read it. And again, it's another dragon novel. And I love dragon novels, but it just takes so long for me to like actually jump into reading a fantasy novel because I get so concerned that I'm not going to like the world building. And I just need to stop that. I need to shut my face and be like, read the book. Read the book. So as you can tell, I'm being very honest here. I am a horrible friend and I need to get this read. Next, I have I So Don't Do Mysteries by Barry Sumi, and it just sounded hilarious based on the title. And yeah, that was basically why I bought the book. And third time's the charm. This is the final one in this set of books that, again, that same booktube friend bought me, and I still haven't read. And it is The Letter for the King by Tonk Dracht. I can't believe that I have pushed off reading this long. Like, this is a Dutch story. It is by a Dutch author, and it has been translated so that I can actually read it in English. But it's like a very well-known Dutch story, and I need to read it. And I can't believe that I haven't. So Horrible Friend is going to start being a better friend to her books and to her book friends. These next 4 I'm going to show you are ones that I ended up picking up because I saw someone on BookTube raving about them, and I was like, that sounds interesting. I want to read it. So the first 3 are all by Cassandra Rose Clark. I have The Assassin's Curse, the sequel, The Pirate's Wish, and then a spin-off series, I believe, just book 1 because the publishing house went out of business and didn't publish book 2, and that is The Wizard's Promise. These covers are really, really pretty, as are the actual spines of the books, and these need to just get read. They need to stop sitting on my shelf. And then the 4th one is Geek Girl by Holly Smale. Love the cover, and I'm pretty positive the premise is that she is kind of like a nerdy, geeky girl, but when she takes off her glasses and does her stuff up, she's either a spy or she's a model. I can't remember. It's one of them. So 10 years of owning this, and I still can't tell you the synopsis because I don't remember which one it was, but it just sounded very interesting for the premise. And the last book I ended up coming across, and I think I've procrastinated because it's part 1 of 2 parts, because I guess they were going to split each book into 2 parts when they translated it to English. and then it got kiboshed for the rest of the books. So I just pushed this to the side because I was like, why am I going to read it when I can't read the rest of the series? I need to just read it because what if I really don't like it? But on the flip side, what if I do? Then I'm going to have to learn German in order to actually read the rest. Unless maybe I can convince the publishers or some publisher to publish. It's called The Valley, and it's by Christina Kuhn. And it just sounds very interesting. I believe it's about a boarding house and things going on there. Very interesting premise. I'm very interested and intrigued to read it. And as I said, all these books, so interested to read them, and they've just sat on my shelf for 10 years. So that's not happening anymore. My newer books, they can maybe sit there a little bit longer, and I'm going to slowly start working through these older books because they've waited for their time. And it is the era of 10 plus year books need to be read this year. I don't think I'm going to get through all 426 of them. I am not that fast of a reader, but if I can get through 150 of these books, I will be a very, very happy reader. If I can get through more than that, I'll be even happier. If you guys have heard of any of the books that I mentioned and you've read them and you think I should maybe skip spinning the wheel and bump them higher on my list to read, let me know. And if you found one that you didn't know about prior to this video, let me know which one did you find most interesting out of the ones I mentioned. So until next time, stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you then. Bye!